We are in this industry of crypto because it's freedom. Blockchain allows everybody from any country to have access to the same financial services. Life becomes fair.
You have a lot of capital now that you deploy. I know you started small, and now fast forward to 1.2 billion, you guys seem to be kind of crypto native, but also still mature enough to be in this kind of TradFi world. That's the vibe I get from Rockaway.
We just kept grinding. And then what really helped us was to be really technology heavy. We are number one in terms of effectiveness of validating Ethereum globally. All our validators together is around $800 billion.
I attended one of your dinners in London a year and a half ago. You guys are very smart, like finger on the pulse of the market in all aspects.
We are basically the plumbers in the background. We provide the shovels and picks because we run the blockchains on our servers. We contribute liquidity to DeFi protocols. I think you really have to read the data on chain to be able to make your decisions. Although we are Central European, we can make big venture capital firms which would compete with the San Francisco-based ones. I think there is much more to do. We have not accomplished our vision yet.
I want to close on this aspect of freedom because until you were 12 years old, you were living in a communist country. What was that like for you, and what does it continue to be like?
Since the Iron Curtain went down, for me the world just opened and is now a box of chocolate. I just want to try everything. But fundamentally, I think it's all about freedom.
The world is changing. Inspiration is everywhere. It has never been so easy to connect, share, and bring people together. We're learning from others and finding the best in ourselves. Challenging our beliefs. Sharing our vulnerability. Overcoming our fears. Transforming ourselves so we can transform the world. How far can we go?
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is...
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Viktor Fischer, the investor, entrepreneur, and blockchain expert. You are the founder and CEO of RockawayX, the digital assets investment firm focused on the growth of early-stage blockchain startups and currently managing assets of $1.2 billion. You previously spent time as a junior partner at McKinsey, specializing in corporate finance and private equity. Then, in 2004, you co-founded tech startup Innovatrix, the award-winning fingerprint recognition software company that was ranked in the Deloitte Top 50. Your mission is to support the Web3 pioneers of tomorrow by investing in and building the technology for a decentralized future. You believe crypto and blockchain represent a financial layer of the internet and bring transparency, freedom, and power to the people all over the world. You have said that the key to being a successful entrepreneur is determination and self-belief, something you hope to instill in the founders you work with. Viktor, welcome to London Real in Dubai.
Thank you, Brian. Happy to be here.
Great to have you here. You once said bull market means conferences, bear market means hackathons and research days.
How do you know that? Yeah.
I've been studying you. So where are we right now? What is the current state of the union in crypto?
Yeah, I think we are in a very different cycle than previous cycles, and I've been around for 2 cycles already. And we are definitely in a crypto bull market. The sentiment is very, very positive within the crypto community. And recently I asked ChatGPT to draw like a small picture of Crypto Spring. And if you look at my YouTube, like the picture it's amazingly right. Yeah, so it's like everything's green and blooming. However, that's the crypto sentiment. Then the TradFi sentiment and the retail, unlike was the case in, for example, 2021 or 2017, is not there yet. So on Coinbase, it's still not like a top 1, 2, or 3 application in App Store. People are not really, normal like retail people are not really trading crypto. And so I think we are in a very different state where it's a crypto people bull market, but normal people bear market still.
Okay. And yet Bitcoin is almost added to your high. So does that tell you that this can go a lot further if and when that money joins us, including the TradFi money that might come in?
I think, so just to be a little bit more specific, I think the TradFi money is coming already in, but only to Bitcoin, thanks to the ETFs. And but the retail is not really investing in Bitcoin yet. When I just took a taxi to come here, the driver is not speaking about, investing into crypto or investing into Bitcoin. And so I think definitely, yes, we are definitely going much higher than previous all-time high, which if I recall correctly, was 69,000.
Yeah. When the taxi drivers are talking about it, it's usually the time to sell it, right? When your grandma's buying crypto, there's a lot of times the time to sell it. I remember I was in 1999, I was in New York City. I was the CFO of a .com startup, and cab drivers were trading .com stocks back then. So think of all the barriers to entry, and that's still happening, and that was kind of the top. Yeah. So
there are a couple of more signals, which I try to take a look on. Some examples from 2021 is when my really good friends, like normal people, tell me like, "Hey, Victor, what should I buy?" That's the first question. And then I tell them, don't buy anything. And then they say, I wanted to buy Ethereum, but it's too expensive. So I'm going to buy Ethereum Classic.
Okay.
And it's not even Ethereum, it's Ethereum. And Ethereum Classic is like, dying coin, which should not be around anymore, right? And second signal, which I like to look at, is the nightclubs. And how many of the tables where you have bottle service are bought by crypto people. And if you, for example, compare 2021 to 2022, when you go to some Miami conferences, like, for example, Art Basel, and so the nightclubs in Miami were complaining in 2022 that no crypto people were there, so they couldn't sell out the bottle service. Okay. And it was the same thing in 2017 and early 18. If you remember the early 2018 Bitcoin conferences in Miami, also like sold out the nightclubs. That's also another signal which I take a look at.
And that means it's the top.
That's the top signal.
Right. Yeah. When you get the text from old friends that aren't in crypto, but then you have the second layer when now they're asking about specific coins and not the best coins.
Yeah.
That means they've educated themselves and looked into it, and that means it's time to sell.
And there is a third signal which I like to look at, and it's crypto conferences, which are normally developers oriented, like Solana Breakpoint, where you don't have any more developers, but you have venture capitalists, and you have people wearing Louis Vuitton and off-white shirts. Then it's also a sell signal.
Okay, right. So when the dev conferences are no longer devs,
like Solana Breakpoint conference in 2021 November was like. Sol was at $250. It was exactly the time to sell because now it's at 100. But when you go to Solana Breakpoint, like for example, I went to the one in November 2023, it was just developers. And, Sol was trading at $30 maybe. It was the right time to buy because there were developers, great community, people developing amazing applications on top of Solana, which could not be built on Ethereum, like, for example, payments, like Sling Money. That was the time to invest in November.
Okay. What is your outlook on the future now? I mean, you have a lot of capital now that you deploy. I know you started small. I think it was like a $6.5 million fund, your first one. And Carrie didn't really employ anybody. And you were like, man, this is hard. I mean, that was back as early as 15, 16 or something?
Yeah.
Okay. And now fast forward to 1.2 billion, what is that like to grow so fast? How do you stay humble? And then how do you separate things? Because you have something very unique. And I attended one of your dinners in London a year and a half ago. You guys kind of have this new energy into what maybe is a traditional, business of managing funds. But you guys seem to be kind of scrappy, kind of crypto native, but also still mature enough to be in this kind of TradFi world. That's the vibe I get from Rockaway.
Yes. So, we nearly went bankrupt at the beginning because, I announced to all our investors, hey, I am raising this 100 million fund, and we got 6.5 million. And then you basically, management fees 2%. So 2% of, 6.5 million, what is it, like
One city salary.
130K, like you cannot pay
Right, it's an analyst.
people. Okay, exactly. And so, but we just basically, didn't pay ourselves, and we just kept grinding. And then what really helped us was to be really technology heavy. And so we started to build all the basically data centers, all the validator infrastructure. And we, for example, ran Solana validator from DevNet to testnet to mainnet. And now we have just our Solana. So all our validators together is around $800 billion that we manage, maybe a bit less, 700, let's say. And
that gives you a return on that money.
yes, that gives you a return.
Kind of a DeFi investment.
It's more infrastructure.
Okay.
Because you really run the blockchains.
Okay.
And so we are number one in terms of effectiveness of validating Ethereum globally.
Wow.
If you go on rated.network, it's a dashboard to compare the effectiveness of all validators, and we are number one globally. Wow. And now I understand why our engineers sleep in data centers, because we also buy the computers ourselves. So we don't run, just validation of Solana or Ethereum on Google Cloud or Amazon Cloud, because we don't want also decentralized entities to then, control the network or have a possibility to just switch it off, which is what happened, for example, with Hetzner. If you know Hetzner, it's a cloud provider in Germany. And many of proof-of-stake networks, so blockchains, were validated there, but they have in their terms of service, you should not be validating any blockchains. And so at one point, they shut off all the servers of Solana that were running there, that people were running in their data centers. And Solana lost 20% of their basically stake being validated. Yeah, 20% is not a problem. 33.3% is a problem, because then you cannot produce any more blocks. And so that's why we fight against centralized entities, and we run all the blockchains in our own data centers. And just to finish on your question, so that's how we basically, I think, not only survive, but that's how also we now provide value, is that we are these, very technical crypto natives on one hand, and on the other hand also like these, TradFi profiles.
Very interesting.
Which, helped us to learn in our previous lives how to do corporate finance. So we're also very cautious.
Okay. And so you own a lot of hardware then?
Yes, we own a lot of hardware.
That's not the easiest business to be in.
But, it's a lot of fun, and hardware just costs some amount of money, and then you basically use it over several years. So you just depreciate it over time. And but I think that's the future of blockchains. Blockchains will always have to run on hardware, whether it's ASICs for Bitcoin, whether it's CPUs for proof-of-stake networks, whether it's GPUs in the future for zero knowledge. There always will be important part, which is hardware. And I fight for the fact that it cannot be centralized on Amazon Cloud.
So the Bitcoin maxis, the first thing they'll point out about Ethereum is it's not truly decentralized, because if, Bezos has his kid kidnapped and they put a gun to his head, he'll turn it off and it's over. Now, maybe that's a bit of a generalization, but is this really what's needed? Do we really need more individuals or individual companies to own hardware all around the world to make these things truly decentralized? And in your opinion, is Solana and Ethereum decentralized at this point?
Yeah. And so I would say, it's not like nobody knows, what is the concentration of Ethereum stake. And I'm hearing lots of it is on Coinbase. I actually think, so Coinbase is a problem, because they themselves, if you look, for example, on Cosmos Hub, so we developed a dashboard for decentralization because it's close to our heart. It's called Observatory. You go on observatory.zone. It's a website. You can see decentralization on all Cosmos chains. And so you look at Cosmos Hub, because it's the main Cosmos chain, the token is called Atom, and nearly 10% of the entire chain, of the entire stake, is on Coinbase Cloud. Coinbase is taking 20% fee, we take 8%, so it's much, much higher. Coinbase is missing some blocks. Coinbase is not participating to governance, and Coinbase is running on Amazon in Ireland on cloud. And I think that's wrong. I think the exchanges themselves should be, I think, a bit more pro decentralization and, run their own hardware in dedicated data centers.
Okay. And then, so how are Ethereum and Solana right now? In your mind, are they decentralized, or do they still have, choke points?
No, I think so. I couldn't imagine a situation where, someone takes over, because you would have to calculate it, like how many. So to take 33% of the entire Ethereum, let's say, is right now at, 250, maybe $300 billion.
Yeah.
So we need $100 billion of money to basically take over Ethereum. For Bitcoin, like, I would have to do some calculations. I don't know what it is right now to take over, that amount of hash rate. Solana is it's a 60 billion valuation, take over 1/3, like $20 billion. So from that perspective, it's difficult, I would say, to take over a chain. But I would say I don't have a problem of running in data centers. I think, just like software currently, most of it is run on data centers. I have a problem if blockchains run on, centralized cloud providers like Amazon, Google, or, Hetzner, for example, OVH.
Because they might censor it or stop it.
Yeah, well, more about this than me.
I do. I know about censorship of my media, but it's interesting. You can censor money as well. Maybe even more dangerous when you censor money, because it's an amazing method of control.
Yes.
Okay, I appreciate that you're doing that. Very much so. Talking about Solana, because you're heavily invested in Solana, and I've never spoke to the CEO of Solana, and I was wondering if you could tell me about your journey with that blockchain. We almost thought it was dead after FTX. I mean, we really did. The price now is at 100, but it was down in 20s or maybe less at one point.
Yeah.
And now it's come roaring back. At one point, I think it was ahead of BNB Smart Chain, and then it was fighting for number 4 or 5. And now you say it's the network to build on for financial tools, I believe. Yeah. Tell me about Solana in your mind, because a lot of people don't know enough about it, or they know it as an NFT provider, back in 21.
Yeah. And so we invested in Solana in March 2018.
Okay.
March 2018.
At the pre-sale token?
Yeah, of course, like before anybody knew that it actually existed.
4 cents, the April 18 was the pre-sale token, according to the blockchain, I think.
Well, you had 2 tranches.
Okay.
You had a 3 cent and a 20 cent, and then depending on like how well you negotiated, you got a blend of the 2.
Okay.
And so, but price doesn't matter. What matters is it was an amazing team. So we went to 500 startups incubator in San Francisco. That's where they all worked. And we met with Raj and we discussed, and I really liked their vision. Already then it was focused on just one thing, to do the fastest blockchain. And then, Raj back then had a position of COO, I believe. And I told him, look, like before we invest, we really like your vision, but before we invest, we'd like to talk to the CEO, which was Anatoly. But Anatoly was just coding with his, ex-colleagues of his previous company, Qualcomm.
Right.
And he didn't even want to talk to us. And this is for me a great signal because when there is clear vision and only one thing they want to achieve, number one, and number two, they eliminate everything else, even talking to VCs and just being focused on one thing. For me, it was, of course, like we back this company. We have to back this team.
Wow, I love that.
And what I really like about them is, like, nothing went well for Solana since the beginning. So, they started building in 17 and started to do their fundraising 18 in March when everything crashed. And basically they are against the cycle. Yeah. So then they released, their blockchain in 2021 and then just went, it just went through the roof immediately. Of course, it was very fast for some reason, overhyped, but it's because they were hitting, the bull market of 2021.
And they had the speed that Ethereum was lacking at that time.
Yes, of course. And but also because retail was coming in and everybody saw Solana as like the blockchain to base, or the token to hold. But interestingly, Sol token had a value of over $100 only for 4 months. So really like a super quick boom and then super quick bust.
Okay.
And then it went all the way down to, I think, $20, maybe even $8 with the FTX. And
Because FTX was heavily invested and or promoting Solana.
I think both. So, and even building on top of Solana, some like early DeFi protocols. And so the team just didn't give up and always continued on their only vision, which was like to do the fastest blockchain globally. And that's why, we always supported them. We even sponsored the Solana Breakpoint conference because we knew that it was tough for them to find sponsors. And right now, here they are. When the most important for me is to use the products of our portfolio companies. We have 50 portfolio companies and 30 funds. And Solana is still the number one product out there. You connect with your Phantom or your Backpack wallet. I was just using it yesterday, and it's my birthday in 2 days. I actually booked a small boat to take for the 14th of February for the whole day with my girlfriend, and I paid with USDC on Solana. It was such an easy experience. Even the provider, the vendor of the boat, he said, "We love blockchains. It's just so easy." And he hadn't heard about Solana back then. And so I introduced him to Solana, sent him, whatever is the amount in USDT, and, he's happy.
So you could, even though he hadn't heard of Solana, you could send him USDC on the Solana network or from the Solana wallet.
Yes, he was proposing me Tron or ERC20, so TR20 or ERC20.
Okay.
But I told him, look at your provider. You should also be able to accept Solana. And then he said, yes, I can. Is this the address? That I checked the address on SolScan. It was a Solana address. There was no money. I just sent him $100 to see if it would work. And then he said, yes, I can see it in my app. Then we just use Solana.
Okay, got it. Was that was a wallet? That wasn't like MetaMask or something. MetaMask probably doesn't support Solana.
MetaMask doesn't.
Okay.
I don't know what he used on his end.
Okay.
But I used the Phantom wallet.
Okay.
And Phantom, on Solana, you have two good wallets. It's Backpack and Phantom. And I used Phantom wallet. Send it to him through Phantom. And then you can see the transaction on SolScan. Super easy.
Okay.
Super easy.
I think I have a Phantom wallet, but I haven't used Solana much yet. And I wasn't using it for NFTs back in the day. But it's got a special place in my heart. I'm from San Diego, so Qualcomm was massive there when I was growing up. I think my brother worked for Qualcomm when he was in high school as a computer scientist. I live literally like 10 miles from Solana Beach.
Yeah.
So I know where Solana comes from. I still never got an airdrop. So, maybe we can chase that up with CEO. But
they don't do airdrops, but maybe you should look at some applications being built on Solana.
Yeah.
There's some really exciting things like, for example, Camino Finance. I think it's like one of the best DeFi protocols on Solana, and they allow you to generate yield. So you have some USDC, you can lock it in a pool, and they provide liquidity into different like decentralized exchanges, for example, like Orca to generate yield, or you can borrow against your sol through Camino Finance. I'm using Camino Finance myself to provide liquidity in a pool called MSOL GTOSOL. So I liquid stake my sol and put in that pool. And Solana inflation is 6% per year. This pool generates 2% per year. So it's interesting.
Okay.
And it's like fully liquid. You can take it out. You can then exchange it for like dollars and then use it. Another example I could tell you as a creator is Helio platform. So Helio is a payment platform for creators. Imagine you are a trader, you have a trading view set of signals, and you can just create a payment link on Helio. People just click, and then they send you USDC. Immediately you get it on your Helio wallet, which is Solana. Very neat interface. You can sell videos. So you upload video onto Helion platform, and for every minute that people watch, you can get some dollars. You can charge for pictures. It's basically a payment gateway, super simple to use, easy graphical interface, which generates payment links for your fans to click and for you to earn money.
Okay. So in 21, when I dove headfirst into this entire ecosystem, after I lost the race for mayor of London, so it was like May 6th, and I went all into crypto. We created a crypto and DeFi academy. We created London Real Ventures. And then I started having the top 100 people on the show. And because back then I had 2.4 million YouTube subscribers, everybody said yes. So I had Emin from AVAX on and John Woo. I had the Hedera people on. I had Justin Sun on. I had anybody I could talk to talk about their layer ones. And I called it the layer one wars because it was all kicking off and people were fighting for market share. I didn't get to talk to the Solana guys, but I'm sure I will at some point. And everyone concluded that maybe there would be a handful of them in the future and each one would specialize. There might be a financial services, there might be a gaming, there might be this, there might be that, based on choice or maybe just users or whatever. How do you think the future of layer ones is going to play out? Now we have layer twos, now we have ZKs, but do you think something like that will happen where some of these layer ones will specialize in one thing or the other? You know, we've seen AVAX now used in some games. I know they were always trying to pitch it for financial services, but like, what do you think we are right now in those top layer ones?
I think the only thing that only two ecosystems that matter, and it's Ethereum and Solana. Everything else, it's secondary. But when I say Ethereum, I mean even EVM compatible chains make sense. And I'm also excited by new kind of, I would say, mixed chains where you have, for example, Monad. Monad is building a full layer one with a parallel EVM. So you can program in Solidity, but actually you can program an application which will which will have its threads executing in parallel versus just sequential like current EVM.
Okay.
Why I think EVM is important is because of all the moat or because of all the ecosystem and all the liquidity. You know, what is it now? $60 billion of TVL locked into the Ethereum ecosystem. That's a lot. And I think blockchains are like planets, you know, like people exchange, or like Hasib from Dragonfly saying they're like cities. So people like to, you know, just exchange between themselves within one ecosystem. Now, Ethereum still has problems. For example, it's fragmentation of different interfaces or layer twos, if I can call it like this, which means with your MetaMask, if you connect, you have to choose which chain to connect to. Like imagine with your phone, if you were calling your mom or your dad, you would have to choose a different network. Makes no sense. So there has to be chain abstraction, which needs to come on Ethereum. I think it's just a matter of time. They are working on it. There is a technical solution to it, but you know, it's a separate discussion.
So that way I can log in with Polygon or any of those other layer twos or compatible layer one EVMs, and they'll all work.
You just open a wallet,
right?
And you don't even know which chain you're interacting.
We're going to tell our grandkids one day that back in our day, we had to choose a chain, and they'll be like, "Oh, come on,
yes,
come on, Grandpa, that's silly."
Crazy.
Right? I know we have to do that now.
Like the fact that you just open your MetaMask and you see USDC on Arbitrum and USDC on Optimism and USDC on Layer 1, like it's crazy.
Yeah, but it's crazy. But a year ago, you wouldn't even see some of those.
No, but everything
would be hidden.
Everything would be slow.
Yeah.
But now, you know, on the Arbitrum and Optimism is relatively fast.
Okay.
Yeah?
All right. And so Emin Gunsir in Brooklyn right now is rolling over in his bed because you just said he's not relevant. But, you know, these other...
Avalanche is EVM compatible.
It is. Yeah. Okay. So they get a pass. All right. So there's a few that will then survive as EVM compatible.
Yes.
But otherwise...
Within that ecosystem, I think, you know, Ethereum has to incorporate a sequencer on their chain. And then all the basically requests have to come through like one sequencer. And that sequencer then has to, you know, ask different chains to execute the transaction. Then the transactions data need to be settled outside of Ethereum layer 1. So today it's called data availability, very bad name. Settled either on L1 or on Celestia. In the future, I think it will be settled on EigenLayer DA, EigenDA, maybe Polygon Avile, maybe ideally Ethereum itself, because I think Ethereum, well, they already have it on the roadmap. It's called danksharding. They should have this data availability or temporary data storage also on their chain. And then the settlement will be on Ethereum L1. So I think right now, just to conclude my thoughts, right now in Ethereum, we are in a world where to make everything more efficient, we are breaking it apart. And ultimately, I think within Ethereum development is still slow. So let's say within 5 years, so not this cycle, but next cycle, we'll have Ethereum, which will incorporate all of those applications which are now being, just modularized or created elsewhere. So I think in the future, Ethereum will have its own sequencer. It will have its own data availability as well. And then we come back to, just basically one integrated solution.
Okay. All right. And so it's ultimately about network effect. Like you said, it's got the most TVL. It's also got the most developers. And so in that sense, it will probably win.
Well, I also said Solana.
Yeah. Okay.
And so, but I think it's also because people are belief-based, and which chain they transact on, it's also a bit of a religion. And so that's why I think Solana is important, because Solana has a big ecosystem right now, and it has a clear value proposition that is the fastest chain and most user-friendly. And I actually also think Bitcoin is important, because Bitcoin is now, $900 billion? It's 3 times Ethereum. That's a big planet. There is not much you can do with it, but just basically hold it. Some people think it's a feature. I think we could do more with Bitcoin. So I'm also excited about Bitcoin utility.
Okay, let's jump there, because we were just at Satoshi Roundtable for 4 or 5 days. It was an amazing event. Shout out to Bruce Fenton, who was actually here in that chair right before it. It was about 450 invite only of some of the probably OGest in cryptos out there. These are people you won't see at conferences. These are people who don't take pictures, and a lot of the people in the ecosystem. I really enjoyed it. I quite enjoyed the talks every single day. There were these impromptu lectures, arguments, discussions that happened all over the Waldorf, which we took over on the Palm. And I really enjoyed a lot. But I would say, maybe I'm wrong, but it felt like 20% of those were about Bitcoin and building on Bitcoin, DeFi on Bitcoin, BRC20, all these things that are happening. And we've got a few investments in that space. And I was really curious to learn. What I actually realized is how little people have been able to do on that ecosystem. It's still very nascent. There's things happening, but it's obviously not built to be a smart contract, and they're trying to hack into it and make it a smart contract. What are your thoughts on the future? Will there be DeFi on Bitcoin? I also met Dan Held, who's an OG Bitcoiner, and he literally is starting his own fund that only does DeFi on Bitcoin. So what do you think about that network? Ordinals have exploded. I think they're doing more volume than NFTs.
In 2023,
And Ethereum.
Most volume.
Right. What is going to happen with Bitcoin?
Yeah. I'm super excited. And we could see it at Satoshi Roundtable. The best discussions were the layer 2s on Bitcoin. That was the talk. Originally, suggested by Munib, which is the founder of Stacks. Yeah. But then you had Munib there. You had Alex from Bob, built on Bitcoin. You had other founders like QED Protocol, which are trying to do zero knowledge based layer 2 on top of Bitcoin. And then you had Litecoin. And so the discussion was so interesting, because I also organized this Bitcoin Builders Unparty. I don't know if you noticed that, but the first day we organized in my room on the 5th floor, Bitcoin Builders Unparty. 80 people showed up.
Was it the 2 rooms you put together?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was the 2 rooms we put together. We opened the door in the middle. We called it bridge. Because normally you don't do bridges if you're a Bitcoiner, because you're just one world apart. And some people were telling me, Viktor, we are not afraid of saying openly, because I invited everyone at the opening speech of the conference. I said, hey, we are doing this unparty in this room, please come starting 9 p.m. And then we were afraid Bitcoin maxis would chase us. And actually it didn't happen. It was fantastic conversation. And I'm so excited about, as I said, build on Bitcoin. So Bob, Botanics, Meso, just super interesting 3 protocols, everything ZK related, QED, so much excitement.
How far away from having DeFi on Bitcoin?
I think 2 years out.
That long?
Yeah.
Because it's so complicated to build it, and the layer 2s aren't ready yet.
Well, the layer 2s will be launched this year.
Yeah.
So until then, there are DeFi applications on top of them. I think it's 1 more year. So 2 years.
Okay. Will we get anybody to do something on the blockchain itself with BRC20? Or is that too unstable in your opinion?
I think it's difficult. I think we need layer twos.
Okay.
I think,
But you're super excited about it.
yeah, absolutely. Well, it's the largest ecosystem. And as I said, it's a huge planet. And people, they like to transact between each other within that one planet. Going to another planet to do something else, it's like, taking a rocket to go from Earth to Mars if you want to do another transaction. And so that's why, I'm very excited.
Okay. Let's contrast BTC with Solana. The criticism Solana gets is it's not decentralized. They used to say all the nodes were controlled by, Andreessen or whoever. I don't know if that's true. And it goes down. The network goes down sometimes. What would you say to those people? And again, as a contrast to Bitcoin, obviously it's got some perks over Bitcoin, but that's the criticism Solana gets. Maybe there's other criticisms you can tell me too. What do you say about those? What are your thoughts on those?
So I would say it is decentralized. It's running on 2,000 validators. And, if you look at them, I think it's maybe 200 of them, which have more than 33% of the network, which is much more decentralized than some, for example, Cosmos networks. If you look at Cosmos Hub itself or even DYDX, it's maybe 10 validators having 33% of the network. And so, yes, it is decentralized, number one. Number two, unfortunately, sometimes it goes down, but it's still in beta stage. And last time it went down was, I think, last week, and the time before was last February, 2023. So, once per year for 4 hours, even Facebook or Google or WhatsApp sometimes go down. And I would argue, it's maybe even more than once per year. Haven't looked at statistics. But I think it's normal in this complex software world. Now, what happened this year is that there was a bug which was already found in a testnet and corrected in a testnet, but somehow it was executed on the mainnet, and that's why the chain stopped producing blocks. We are actually one of the main validators of the Solana blockchain. Also, we were on Discord orchestrating the restart. How is the restart done? Is that you choose a snapshot, like a blockchain at one point of time in a history. The snapshot is 60 gigabytes. Then we hosted those 60 gigabytes on our servers, gave access to everybody, all the validators. They have to download the 60 gigabytes. So at one point we were uploading 10 gigabytes per second because the whole world was downloading the snapshot from our servers. And then they put the snapshot on their servers, and then you have to wait until 80% of stake is up and running, which takes 4 hours until, the timing is right throughout all the time zones globally. Because now, we had to wait until the West Coast in the US wakes up.
Okay. A little messy, huh? The ETHs are going to come after you on that. And the financial people are going to say, wait a second, this is down. And the gamers are going to say, we need our network.
Well, I think 4 hours, I think we can get it down to 1 hour if we have better processes internally to restart the validator network. Solana Labs is not involved because they are developing the chain. But to restart the chain, you have to have a coordination of validators. And I think we have to do a better job there because it's still a bit, there is one document which is prepared with all the instructions, and that document is not updated, and it's a bit of a mess. So from my TradFi experience, I know we can do processes better. And then, of course, just the blockchain will get more stable with time. The Lind effect.
Right.
More time, the better it gets, like life.
Okay. Yeah, right. Let's talk about yield, because I know you have kind of areas that you invest in. I know DeFi is one of them. I know you have investors that want yield. TradFi loves yield. We used to see back in 21, amazing yields, 8% on USDC, then 18% on the USD, and then they all crashed down below what you could get in the treasury market. Now, another thing that people were talking about at Satoshi was liquid staking, Eigenlayer, some of these new exciting ways where you can take your 4.5% Ethereum staking yield and get an extra 2 or 3 or 4 or 8, depending on what you want to do with your risk. Maybe 20 max they're seeing on Eigens, although that seems to be a little toppy. Yeah, what are your thoughts? Is this exciting? It seems kind of exciting to me. I come from kind of fixed income derivatives,
yeah.
And so what are your thoughts on that? Obviously, Eigenlayer is a big talk. There's rumors it's going to be a $20 billion protocol. It's already making their investors a lot of money. We're seeing some dApps on that are already blowing up as they launch. So what are your thoughts? What does Rockaway think of these exciting things?
So we are very excited about the yield. We think it's a very strong value proposition of blockchains. It was the case in 2021 when real interest rates were negative. And we could have, at one point, because we have a fixed income product, we have a fixed income yield fund. It's a market neutral hedge fund based in Liechtenstein, fully regulated in EU. And so we were generating 20, 25, 30% back in 2021. And
wow, there was some Terra Luna in there to help.
Well, what was the Anchor's yield? It was 20%, no?
Yeah, 18, 20, something like that.
Yeah, Anchor's yield was 20%. So yes, we had I think $8 million in Anchor that we removed when the unpacked was happening. And but the bottom line is people love yield. And so, but I still split the yield in two categories. One is yield on USD, on dollar. It is very difficult right now to have a strong product on the blockchains because, like you say, in TradFi, investors generate 4 or 5% risk-free. I just met with an investor here in Dubai. They're saying they can do 13% lending to a good TradFi company generating $400 million per year of positive EBITDA. It's uncollateralized lending, but with such a P&L and a good balance sheet, they can borrow and they offer investors 13%. 13. Now, we generated on our fixed income lending product 13.6 last year. That's not good enough for TradFi investors. They prefer staying in their TradFi world, having 13% with risks they understand. In our world, they don't understand the risks. I think this can change in a bull market, where when we provide liquidity to DeFi protocols, we earn underlying yield, but also tokens on top. Think of it as, you are providing venture debt and you get warrants on top. And so with this, I think we could achieve, the 20, 25, maybe the 30%. That might be interesting for TradFi. But I think we are not there yet in DeFi. On the other hand, generating yield on native assets, that's very exciting. But that's for crypto native people because they own a lot of Sol, they own a lot of ETH, and they own a lot of Bitcoin. And they would like to generate more yield on this. Look at, for example, Blast. Have you heard about Blast?
No.
Blast is an L2 on Ethereum. It doesn't do anything, but if you put your ETH there, it stakes and it generates staking yield for you and gives you points. So then you will earn also Blast tokens once they are released. And there was like a huge amount of Ethereum which was bridged to Blast protocol. Although it's not secure because it's just a multisig. So basically like a team can now take your ETH and maybe run away with it, yeah? And so these native assets are really searching for yield. I am against speculative yield generated on airdrops. I like real yield. I'm, for example, excited by insurance, where you could use your native Bitcoin or Ethereum or Sol to actually reinsure some insurance. So Realm as a company is one of the top insurance providers for crypto because, AXA would not insure you if you are managing a fund and you need directors and officers insurance, but Realm would. Now Realm has so much demand that they would like to reinsure some of it. The best way how to reinsure it is through a DeFi protocol. You lock your ETH, you give it to them, they use it for reinsurance. Yeah, I'm excited by those uses.
Is that happening yet? Not yet.
I hope soon.
Okay. So, and let me just understand, and this is an important point, is that when people are promising you yields and there's no risk to give you that reward, you're suspicious because that's going to end in tears, right? That is kind of a, multi-layer marketing Ponzi type scheme. But if there's real risks that someone's taking on to get that yield, you're a believer. So if I'm insuring or if I'm maybe doing some of the liquid staking, which we'll talk about, then I do deserve that extra few percent. And you're excited about those.
Yeah, actually, I'm not excited about airdrops or tokens for free or a yield for free. Yeah, because I think it's just speculation.
To continue watching the rest of the episode for free, visit our website londonreal.tv or click the link in the description below.
So Jim Rickards has just recorded a video that's not available to anyone in the public, and he's going to be talking about how this upcoming recession is going to be fast, it's going to be bloody, it's going to be nasty. But at the same time, he's going to show you how you can position yourself to profit from all of this chaos. Now, we've made this video only available to our viewers. Go to londonreal.tv/Jim. Watch that immediately. I can't say enough good things about Jim Rickards. He understands the global economic system better than any guest I've ever had on London Real. His predictions are almost uncannily true, and you can learn how to profit from his vision, from his expertise, and his understanding of economics. So go to londonreal.tv/Jim or click the link below. It's an excellent, excellent look on what's going to happen in the future and how you can position yourself to profit from that. Jim is one of the best in the business, one of my favorite guests on London Real, and he's very, very good at predicting the future and showing us all to profit from it. So click the link, and I hope you enjoy.
Hey, it's Brian Rose, founder of the DeFi Academy. I've told you my 4-week crypto bootcamp is amazing, but don't take my word for it. This is what my students are saying.
The DeFi Academy was an amazing experience for me. It took me totally out of my comfort zone.
In this course, I was challenged, I was held accountable, and pushed to do things that honestly weren't always easy.
It's been phenomenal, and I can't believe we're already up on our 4 weeks. It has flown by.
Going through this DeFi accelerator by far was one of the best courses I've taken.
You do this course, you really get into the nitty-gritty of the activities that will make you comfortable with decentralized finance.
Thank you so much to Brian and everyone at London Real and the DeFi Academy for even putting together an amazing course like this.
Anybody else that wants to do it, please sign up. It is well worth the money.